Do leadership differently. This is a research project for my work with my clients. It's about leadership innovation, and it focuses on high performers in a highly intense environment. The kind of leaders who know how to perform at peak performance, take care of their own well-being, but are also strong creative problem solvers. I coach people who are strong creative problem solvers in various fields. They work in highly intense environments and they know how to perform at a peak level. And some of them are missing something because we can't see our own selves. Different is better than better. Deconstructing the best leaders in various industries can be of tremendous value to anyone who's seeking to be a better leader themselves. In this episode, I had the privilege of interviewing Doron Segal, who is a brilliant programmer and the CTO and co-founder of Diem. Doron was born and raised in Israel. He began his high-tech journey by looking for investors, but instead got a job at eMeter, which was later acquired by Siemens. Later, he joined Beats Music, which too was acquired by a small company called Apple, and turned into Apple Music and became part of iTunes. After working there for a while, Doron then joined OpenTable as an engineering manager, working on both consumer and restaurant sides. About 5 years ago, he was one of the first to join SailDrone, a small startup which operates a global fleet of wind and solar-powered ocean drones monitoring the state of the planet in real time. He started there as an engineer, then moved on to management and became the director of the platform. When COVID-19 hit, he saw the opportunity to help local businesses. This came from a deep sense of fear of waking up one day and seeing that there are no local businesses left. Listen to how he describes this himself. I learned a lot from talking with him. I'm sure you will too. Enter Doron Segal. Enjoy.
But really what we're doing, we basically putting a ring on this relationship between a customer and a merchant. And I think that's the key, that's the value proposition here. Think about a coffee shop. You go and you get your coffee, and you can be like, I kind of like to break it into three. You have the tourist, you have the local person, and you have the regular. Tourist will be you coming visit me in Berkeley, and we're going to a coffee shop. Great, you're a tourist. Like, okay, they shouldn't invest too much on you because you're gonna get one coffee and that's it. Then you have the local person. I live in Berkeley, but I'm not a regular. So you want to kind of convert me into from a local to a regular. And then on the regular, there's nothing that stopped me to going to a different coffee shop. And that's where we kind of help you, is to put this ring and says, hey, build a subscription. Hey, if you pay $50 a month, you get coffee every day. And it's like, oh, that's a great deal. That's cheap. And then the next time you're going to go for a coffee, or you want a croissant, or you want bread, this is your go-to place. You already start to have a relationship. It's like, oh, hey, Didia, how's it going? How was your coffee yesterday? So it's becoming more like, oh, they know my name, I know them, I help them, then it's like, I'm the patron, like, hey, I'm helping them to support this business. And it's funny because my friend from Israel would say, I would never do that. And I'd be like, okay, what about it? A 24-year-old after the army, starting his own new coffee shop. And he said, hey, it's 200 shekel a month, but it's really going to help me a lot with the rent anxiety and stuff. And I'd be like, yeah, you know what? He's a nice guy. Why not? Why not? It's not going to make you poor. You're going to get coffee every day anyway. Maybe not every day, but now it's like, I can get my coffee now there because I got the good deal. So I think that's where when you start seeing people like, I feel good about myself. It's like recycling in America. It all goes to the same landfill in some places, but you like to sort it anyway.
And how many businesses are you working with?
So right now we have over 20 active merchants. We are just getting started, and we really want to be focusing on specific verticals, but the goal is to kind of expand to different verticals. So we trying to add more feature than adding more customer at the moment. We're thinking about also going worldwide, so it's not just going to be the US. We have stores from Canada, one from Australia. So we are seeing that too. Yeah, that's where we are there.
Amazing. When are you coming back to Israel?
June. The plan is, yeah. So I want to move back. I want to have the company fully remote. I think from a couple of reasons. I think it's create a good culture when everyone's remote. then there's no the office politics of like, oh, you in the headquarters in the US, so I'm in Israel. There's like basically a glass ceiling for me, because I need to be in the headquarters to get promoted, and it's like Microsoft and Amazon and most of those companies. You have to be there. It's like, because it's where the politics are happening. And when you do it fully remote and fully transparent, hey, you just can't do those things. So I think it will create that. Second, if you want to talk about diversity, I think when you have a fully remote company, that's when you actually said, oh, we are diverse, because I have a guy from Africa, and I have a guy from the Dominican, and I have a guy from Israel, and I have a guy from India, and everyone's kind of working together, and they need to be more flexible and more understanding and more empathetic for the different cultures.
That's fascinating.
So, yeah.
And I love it. I actually wrote a paper about more than 15 years ago on that note, that the world is returning to its original source in history, going back to in this case to the story that we know that happened in Babylon. In Hebrew it's called Dor HaPalaga, when God dispersed the people after they built the Tower of Babylon. So I wrote a little paper stating that till we have the internet, there was never an opportunity for virtually all of humankind to get together and work on something, on one mission, or meaning get a group of people from all over the world and working on one single mission at a time. Because even with the locomotive and the train and mail and the telegraph and everything, it wasn't as powerful as the internet. Now it's almost simultaneously, right?
Right.
You eliminated the element of time. You could text instantly. You could talk on the phone, video chat, as we're doing now. I'm in Israel and you're in
Berkeley.
Right?
Yeah.
And you can have people from different cultures, different countries, different languages, all communicating at the same time. So the premise of what I wrote was that if God is now giving us this powerful tool, the internet, let's not mess it up, because then we had the power that we were all together, all humankind, all humans were in one place, and we had one language. Then we were dispersed into different places with different languages, which caused us to disconnect from each other. And now we can reconnect. Yeah.
No, and I agree. And I think it definitely opened so many potential. Like, think about like just Africa with like all you need is an internet connection and electricity, which we do have a guy from Nigeria, and sometimes we'll be like, oh, my internet is too slow, or like sometimes you have no power. Like that's something that we, at least in Israel and the US, we don't really experience much. In California, you do because of the fire, but that's a different story. But like in Israel, I never had a thing of like, I cannot work from home. Like my internet and electricity is pretty stable. It's like basically Google SLA almost. Like it's pretty good. And those countries that you're starting to see, oh, they have those problems. So I think we definitely need to get there first in those countries. But I definitely think the world is going to change. I think you're going to see a wealth moving toward, it's going to be definitely more equal. So if it's like this, now it's going to be a little bit more equal. And I think as the future progresses, people are starting to see like, hey, I don't need to live here. I can live wherever I want. And you see Americans starting to move to Costa Rica and other places. And you're right, we are moving more to the source. It's starting with organic food. It's starting with like the human connection. So I think definitely that's the direction.
Totally. That's amazing. Okay, so if you're ready, let's get started.
Okay, cool.
Great. What are you known for, and what can people count on you for?
Ooh, wow. I guess the people who know me know that I'm very outgoing, spontaneous. They definitely can count me of like be there for them when they say, hey, let's do this thing. He'll be there.
You're not only referring to like, let's go have fun, go to a party. You're talking about if someone needs help.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's in general. It will be like, hey, let's go to this trip. Hey, I need someone. So I think people can count me on that. Definitely, that's something I'm known for.
And what would you say is the hardest thing in business or in life that you have overcome, and what did you learn from that experience?
I think focus to and saying no, which are very correlating with each other.
Hmm.
Try to be very single-threaded. That's very hard because we all think we can do multiple things at one time, but it's just impossible. I can't talk to you now and write a message. Like I can do only one thing. Maybe in a minute I can do both, but right now I'm going to write the message and I'm going to basically be like, but I'm not going to be with you for the 10 seconds I'm going to reply. So really being single-threaded and take it to the next level. So meaning like, I'm going to now work on adding a feature to my product. This is what I'm doing. Like, if you're going to call me and say, hey, let's talk, it's like, is that related to this product? No, let's talk later. Stuff. So basically really being focused on that, and be determined. Like, people's like, let's do a startup. And then 2 weeks later, nah, you need to just decide that you're going to do it, and you do it for 8 months
Hmm.
or a year. People didn't build Bavel in one day, right? When they was building the tower, right? Took years, if not generations. And people had more patience back then. So I think the same thing, that our generation don't have the patience. They don't have the patience to see a 15-second clip on TikTok, I guess. So they're like swiping before, right? So I think you need to be more patient. So
Hmm. Great. Um, Now it's going to get a little funny with this next question, but please try to answer it anyway.
yeah,
How much time off have you taken each year for the past 3 years? And why wasn't it more or less?
so I'm good at that, because you always see those movies in Hollywood that there's the dad who always working and says, I can't do this because I'm working, or
Mm,
like, and then he's 70 years old. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry, I was working. So this is in my head all the time. So I have 3 kids now, and like next week I'm gonna take them camping, and like I'm gonna be off, and so I try. Look, COVID was a weird time, so we didn't took time off there.
mm,
Although I did went camping with them. So you have 2 boys, and now we have a girl. So I have a 7 and a 5.5-year-old, almost 6, so 18 months apart, and we have a 6 month. So so I'm working from home. I hold my baby 10 minutes ago before the interview.
mm,
So I definitely try to do it. I have in my calendar 6:30 to 8, which is like a shower, bed thing with the family. So everyone see like I'm busy, so I'm not online. Um, then again, bugs will happen, things will be down, customer will be upset. It doesn't gonna change anything if you're gonna come back to them an hour later.
mm.
And you wanna empower other people. I think that's kind of to the leadership, that they can solve problem when you're not around. But if you're always around, you're never gonna see those people, rising.
Right.
So
That's actually my coach, Rich Litvin. He tells a story about a case that he had with a client of his who was CEO of a successful company. And they were doing very well until a certain uh, period of time where the CEO noticed that the people weren't solving the problems themselves, and only when he would show up, they would ask him to address the issue, and he
I
would fix them right away, and and that was it. But it turned into the cycle where they couldn't solve anything anymore. And Rich Litvin, my coach, he um, he told him, he coined a term for this. He called it the white knight syndrome. He called him, this CEO, the white knight, that he turned himself into their crutch, that they didn't need to um, rely on
think
themselves to
or
figure it out anymore because they had him,
right.
and they knew that they had him. So his solution to that was remove yourself from the picture even more. He had to step away even more and let his people grow into their leadership positions.
I agree. I had so many arguments with CEOs in my manager about people in my teams that says, "Oh, you can't fire this guy. He's so good that everyone needs him." It's like, no, he's the problem because he always says, "No, move aside. Let me fix it."
Mm,
And for me, those are the worst managers. Like especially in engineering, when they're like a lead engineers, so they're like letting just like, oh, never, I can do it in an hour, and then they take it, and then they take this, and then and they're like the most poisoning thing to culture in companies. I actually let go one of the engineers in Diem because of like I felt like he wasn't helping the team, and I was like, I don't care how good it is. So culture comes first, and that's how. And now you see two other people who are like getting, like able to like speak up more. Um, so even the way you run a meeting, you like as a manager, you have to mediate it. So you start with the people of like, with the like the quieter more and say, hey, John, what do you think about it? Hey, David, what do you think about it? You kind of
mm.
like try to get their opinion. And some people, of course, those other people like, oh, he's running the meeting too long. Oh, he's doing that. But they don't understand that like what I'm trying to do is like get those voices out too. So I don't hear the same two people all the time.
I love it. It's brilliant. Now, what are you willing to sacrifice to achieve your goals, and what are you not willing to sacrifice?
I think when you ask the question, probably will be like, oh, I'm not willing to sacrifice my health and this and this. But in reality, you kind of do them anyway, right? Like probably it would be better for me to exercise more and meditate for 2 hours a day and basically not really working. So I'm definitely sacrificed. To tell you like no one sacrificed, we definitely are. Like you're definitely working longer hours. You definitely sacrifice sleep. um
But
you
what are
sleep
you
less
willing
or
to sacrifice? Like, if you think of your goal, whatever that may be,
yeah,
think in the future now. What are you
right. So
willing to sacrifice?
I guess my sleep, um you know to tell you that I'm not sacrificing time with the family, I probably do. um you know do I want to do it? Am I willing to do it? No. Does
Well,
it
you're
actually
doing it.
happen? I'm
Because
doing
that's
You're
not the
doing it.
part of the question. What are you not willing to sacrifice?
So I'm not willing to sacrifice time with my family and health issues. Is
Well,
it gonna happen sometimes? I'm not willing to do it, but sometimes you know what I mean. Like we're not willing to do those, but then we do those.
give me
So
an
like,
example of something that's just not going to happen. You're not willing to sacrifice.
uh, okay, I guess my time with my family. Yes, like if it's gonna be like going now for a month to do something, I probably won't do it without my family.
Mhm.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's yeah, because I think that's the thing. My health, like I won't do something that's gonna hurt my health or anyone. Um, I'm not gonna work in like gambling companies, so I have like my moral conscience about like there's companies that I would never work for, and I'm not judging anyone who are working for this company, but I had offers from those companies in my life before, and I decided not to go. And it's starting later in my life, and I know it's a very privileged thing to say though, because it's not. Because some people's like, what do you mean? That's the only job I got. Yeah, if you get me a job there, I'll go work there too. So I understand it's a privilege thing, but I don't want to work anything that do like gambling, porn sites. Probably never gonna do that. Um, I don't want to be like the guy who built the Forks thing, and then I have someone who just lost his house because of something I did. I think I rather live in a smaller house with cheaper car, but not have to like have it on my conscience of like,
You
oh, that's what
value
I did.
you value your morals very high.
Yeah. So that's something I'm never gonna compromise. That's for sure. Like never. Yeah.
Fantastic. I love that. And I appreciate that
Yeah.
very much. And I resonate with that. It's a
Yeah.
very
I
powerful
think it should be illegal. I think it should be, to be honest, like I definitely think it's such a broken market. Like, and it serves very specific group of people, it serves very small percent of people. And the funny part is the people who lose the most is the poor people. And I think the people on the top don't understand it. that by doing that, you're actually affecting yourself somehow or your grandkids to live in a worse world than they have. Like think about kind of like, you don't want to give the model of Brazil, right? You have very rich people, very poor. There's no middle class. And then they're always like, they're all about themselves until one day they're like, oh, I can't even walk in the street now. It's so dirty and crime rate is crazy. It's like you made it. So if you just willing to like have one car and not 15 or 20, why a person need those 20? Why does person need the 100-foot boat? Get one, build it under a company, rent it when you need it, whatever. Like I think there's definitely should be a limit on their wealth. So just to, and I'm not saying like make a 1,000x time more than the minimum salary, 1,000x. I think it's fair. But the problem today that it's like a million times x more from the minimum. It's just those numbers that don't add up.
Interesting.
Yeah, they were trying to actually pass the law in Switzerland that the maximum salary will be up to 1,000x. Unfortunately, it didn't even pass in Switzerland. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what habits held you back the most in the past, let's say, 3 years?
Held me the most years.
Held you
I
back.
think not. Yeah. I think not focusing. Definitely, I think focusing and determination. The one I was saying before. That's what helped me. That's what I was working on, and that's what helped me the most. Like I would start something, but then really I wouldn't keep up with it, or just like after like a while, say, you kind of forget about it. You like the drive just disappear. And I think just having a more single-threaded and says, this is what I'm going to do. And if it's not that, I'm just not going to do that. And have very good schedule of times. Like, hey, from 9 to 5, that's what I'm going to be focusing on. And when you're really focusing on, you get a lot, like opening Facebook during the time, right? Is it helping you? Is it, am I on the same thread? No. So let's continue, so.
Now that's a very clear way of describing it, but these things can distract us even if we decide in advance that they won't. Is there anything that you use, any tool or technique that helps you overcome those temptations?
Delete those apps from your phone. So I don't have those apps on my phone. I can only use Facebook on my computer now. Before I just kind of changed the password and never looked back. So I just didn't know that. Reset your password and use like whatever Chrome's suggesting to you. And then just don't know the password. Of course, again, you can recover it if you need to, but again, so just don't have those temptations. Like don't get ice cream to your house and say, I'm not gonna eat it. Just don't get the ice cream. And don't say, okay, once I'm done with this one in the refrigerator, then. No, just take it out and give it to someone in the street. I don't know how it is where you live, but where we live in California, you would drive 2 blocks away and you'll find someone who would love to get this ice cream.
I'm sure everyone around me would love some ice cream.
Yeah, exactly. So again, just start doing it right away and saying, okay, this is what I'm doing. It's like the videos, I'm sure you get tired after like, interviewing the people and editing later and don't see the, you don't see like what you would like to see, like, oh, no one really watched them. But then once you're gonna get to 1,000 or 500 video, then you'll be like, oh, the video number 9 I did like a year ago, now it's paid off. And I think that's basically this like border between people who just do stuff and throw it and hope it's gonna stick to the wall and it's never, to someone who's just gonna keep doing it and keep doing it. Then when it gets to the wall, he passed it, and then he starts seeing the wave coming. And I think that's what difference, like people like, like let's go to the extreme, like Jeff Bezos. Like people like, oh wow, he's so billionaire and blah blah. He worked really hard for what he started. He probably, when you ask me about what am I willing to sacrifice, he sacrificed everything probably when he first started. At least that's what it seems like. But he definitely sacrificed. He left New York, high-paying job, to Seattle, starting from scratch. So he did sacrifice his own money and savings. So now I'm just going into like.
No, great. Now, what's one truth that you've held back that you know the world needs to hear?
No one is an expert, you know? Like don't feel like everyone has something to learn.
Mm,
And even when you meet someone, they there's like even Elon Musk, and again, Elon Musk is a character, it's not a person. There's a person there, but what you see in me, it's just a character that someone's trying to show. He's not that smart, you know. He's smart, he's not an idiot, but he's not as what people think he is. He's human just as everyone here, and everyone can be like that. You read the same book that you read, you have probably people who summarize it, so it can be more of like a superhuman. We have a PR agency probably working on his tweets and everything. So we have it's just not one person, it's a number of people who are working on these personas. And the same thing for every other person you see in Google, or, now with this, that you see in TechCrunch articles, they're
mm.
just the same as you. Instead of watching Netflix and talking about sacrifice, yes, I don't watch sports. I try to be very, I guess, cheap on my time, very focused on my time. But, that's what I'm sacrificing, stuff. I don't play video games. I don't do those kind of stuff. I do meet with friends. I do think social is important.
Excellent. I love that. Now, if you don't mind, can
Yeah.
you reflect on a moment when you wanted to speak truth to power or express yourself and you did not? Why didn't you? And what was the result of that?
Yeah. I think a lot of the time, going back to my point, that you think like you need to be that smart or that experienced. I think when I was younger, especially moving to the US and sitting in a more exec team, I was trying to be more like them than who I am.
Who's them?
Like basically, like the people I was in a meeting with, right? Like the other executive teams. I was very different. I wasn't, I didn't graduate from Harvard Business School. And then you realize when you start asking questions from a place of like, oh, I genuinely want to understand, and you really drill in, they don't really know much. They know the surface to says those words, but you'll see that it's a very small percent of people who can actually drill into the details. Let's say you talk with some financial people or MBA, and you start drilling into like
Give me an
equity and
example.
talk about.
Give me a concrete example of something that happened where one moment where you did not, where you did speak truth to power. No, sorry. Oh, that's the
I
next
didn't.
one.
You said
Where
didn't.
you did
Yeah,
not.
that's
Yeah.
when I
Where you
didn't.
did
Yeah.
not speak truth to power or express yourself when you should, right? And
Right.
why didn't you at the
Uh,
time? And what was the result of the fact that you did not express yourself?
yeah. So sometimes there's someone who's with 20 years of experience. I can't get the right example since it's recorded in public. But
Oh,
you
not
hear
the
someone that
details.
says, yeah, but someone would say like, oh, I know that should be that, and I look at the metrics, and this is how it is, and I look at the metrics too, and it's like that's not what I got from it.
Hmm.
And I didn't say that because I didn't want to put the other person on the spot. Something that when I first started, I would. Then I realized don't do that. So I did used to do it before. Now then I didn't do it.
I'm asking about a case where you should have spoken up, but you did not.
Right. So I should have brought it up. So at first I used to when I was younger and more junior, I would bring it up right away at the meeting. Hey, that's not true. And that specific meeting, I didn't because I was like, wait, I look at the data. That's not what it was saying, but I didn't, and I should have brought it up. Later, I learned how to bring it up in a better way. Instead of saying you're wrong, you say, oh, that's very interesting. By the way, maybe we can think after, because I think I got a different thing here, instead of just call them out, because then it's just never good. So that's me today. But back in that meeting, after the bad experience I had before that I just brought it up, like, no, that's not true. And people are like, that was really a bad way of bringing it up. I just say, okay, I'm not even going to say anything. And I think it's a bad culture for a company in a way, because when you have those energies and when you have this like relationship with people, when you cannot bring up those mistakes because it's becoming more personal. So I didn't say anything. So I should have said like, oh, okay, that's, instead of saying that's not like something negative, you start by like saying, oh, that's very interesting. It's the nuance, I guess, and it's maybe true for the US and maybe, you know, North America.
No, I think that's a very good way of creating dialogue.
Yeah,
You don't have to necessarily put someone down to disagree.
right. It's all about how you deliver it, because you deliver the same message at the end of the day,
Mhm.
but you do it in a way of like, oh, that's very interesting, because you might be mistaken too. You're right. It's a way. You're right. It's a more polite way of, and people call it politics, but you're right. It's not. It's just a nicer way of saying like, oh, that's an interesting way. I actually saw it in a different way. Maybe I'm missing something,
Mhm.
and that's what I started doing today, putting myself more vulnerable, and then to say like, oh, I might be idiot here, so can you bear with me for 1 second? This is what I see. Am I missing something? And then it's gonna be like, no, you're actually right. Thank you. That's actually,
That is one of the most powerful methods to
yeah,
build up proper leadership, vulnerability. We are
yeah,
so afraid, leaders, everyone, but especially leaders who are looked up to become more vulnerable. But the moment we actually become more vulnerable with our team,
yeah,
and I'm not saying you have to share everything, but the moment you become more vulnerable, you will see that your team will be ever more with you.
yeah. No, I agree. And that's the other thing. What I used to do in meetings. So I would sit in the back, and someone will, you know, present whatever. So I would ask the most stupid question in the room.
Hmm.
So people sometimes, one time I asked a question even about something that I built, but people like, come on, you build it. Like, it's like, no, but I want to see, like, I just, so I should have asked it differently, but I knew when I asked this question that there were like at least 5 people in the room that had no idea what he was talking about. It was a specific term like this. And I knew no one ever heard about it. Even CTA, call to action, right? And when you work with remote team, people, you have to say call to action. You just can say CTA, ARR, MRR. You can't do those because some people say, do you mean Chicago? Something, someone asked me the other day. I'm confused how the Chicago what is, I literally something about Chicago because it's like CTA. It's like, you know, transfers, Chicago transfer, whatever, transportation, something. And I was like, you're right. Thank you for this comment. Like, that's what I realized. You always need to ask those questions. Like people always assume, oh, he knows that. Or like, I don't want to be the idiot in the room who asks those questions, but I can, you're right. Because, you know, I don't need to prove myself. And I think in a way, it's like, it's funny because what you were saying, like it's vulnerable to be vulnerable, but in a way you're not. Because in a way, this vulnerability makes you even stronger. You know, it's like people who talk more softly and more gentle and like they're like really great leader, you know.
Hmm.
So,
That's a very true statement. I learned to in my coaching to slow down and speak slowly. It changes everything.
right. No, I agree.
What's your greatest regret so far?
Ooh, biggest. Not to put more effort in a lot of stuff I did. Even though I pushed hard, I always knew I could push harder. And that's maybe like a very Israeli army mentality of like when you do like those tryouts and you feel like I could have done better there and get farther,
Hmm.
or getting it, or maybe a test that you got 90 instead of 100, and be like, I could spend 2 hours more for this test and get it right. So it's a bit of a FOMO, I guess, of like, but I could have done better. And it's something I'm trying not to deal with this too much, but it's something that always like, I wish I could push harder, sleep
In what
less and do that.
in what specific area of life?
Oh, dude, in almost everything. Like, yeah, even in the army on those tryouts, right? On like, in, you know, in like, in my career, different places, you know, I worked hard, but I could work a little bit harder. And like, you know, you always feel like I could have done better. I could have, before I did this meeting and did this like whatever, like 6-page, like the 3-pager, whatever, the 1-pager, I could have done better. Preparing for an interview, I could have prepared better. Stuff like that.
Why is that important to you?
Because I feel like I could have done better, and instead I just like waste my time on some other thing. So that looking backward was less important than that.
Mhm. So you feel like you just didn't deliver the best you can.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's an important value for you.
Yeah. Yeah. To be better, I think it's a little bit of maybe it's a little bit of a competitive thing, but same with being a manager, right? Being a leader, it's like you want to set an example. You want to empower people. You sometimes you think about, I could have done better on the way I spoke to him. I could have done even as a parent, right? I shouldn't have yelled at him. It wasn't a big deal. So it's a milk on the ground, big deal, you know. But like looking back and always, I think it's good and bad. I think reflection is very good because that's what makes us better. If you never reflect, this is who I am, live with it. And I know people like that. And no, it's not true. You always need to work yourself to be a better person.
Mm.
And not for everyone around. It's funny because it's like saying vulnerable, but you're actually being stronger. And it's the same here. It's for the people around you, but it's also for you. It's not just for them, So I definitely think there's there too.
Mhm. Now, what would you like to accomplish that may look impossible right now, but if it were achieved, would change everything?
Um, I would like to do some sort of like a social impact change. And so meaning like, how can I help? Like right now, even people talk about tech in Israel and tech in Israel, and we're raising so much money, but people don't think that like there are other people who not making that amount of money. And if like housing prices, there just need to be more, there's something need to be more justice. Like someone doesn't need to have 5 apartments. Someone can have 1 instead of renting 4. Like something that I want, like, I think that's what more important to the world than like showing like, hey, look, we raised all this money. We're going to go IPO. We sold the company. Or I think it's more important. But I think there's a core problem in society that like if someone says, oh, I'm a social worker and this is what I'm trying to do, it's like, yeah, let this guy talk. It's more interesting. So I definitely think this, I see it here that when you kind of like always do this gold rushing thing, it's gonna hurt us all later. Even if we don't see it now, when people just like me, and my, and like, it's like, then you wake up one day, it's like, whoa, look what's going on outside. It's bad. It's like, we're part of the problem when we're just focusing on ourselves.
And how do you plan on going about this social mission of yours?
Cool. I don't know. You said something impossible. So like, yeah, this is something I always talk
Seems
about and I
impossible
try.
right now.
Yeah.
You see,
I don't know.
Let me just clarify where this question is coming from. See, in the world of coaching, some coaches work with their clients in the realm of possibility. Others dare to go into the realm of probability. I play the game of impossible. I bring my clients into a place where they're thinking of working on changing something that is literally impossible at the moment, or at least it seems impossible at the moment. And I bring them to that vision.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So that's kind of where it goes, where we start with per diem. Like if we'll empower those local businesses, we're going to take more from the people on the top. Because right now, when you have lots of automation and, you have the internet, so you're suddenly Walmart and Amazon can sell their product to almost like everyone around the globe. So they can sell more. They're automating more. So instead of like sending emails or letter where people had to write them down, 100 years ago, maybe even less, right? Before email, what, 70, 50 years ago? People had to write those and it was slow, right? A person can write, let's say 200 letters a day. And if it like that, I don't even know what was the marketing way back then, but let's think about this email it. Now they do 200 million in a second, right? So just one person write the copy, the other person design it, and boom. Those designer and copywriter, they don't get the same amount of money of those 200 million mail that they used to send, right? They don't. They get less. They don't get as what's happened is we got this to this like marginal zero cost, right? Like to make a phone call. This phone call is free. It's actually a video and it's free. 20 years ago, to get something like that, we would have paid thousands of dollars, right? To just have a phone call. So it's now zero, right? So there is this thing called the marginal cost, right? Like how do we get everything to zero? Cost, Wi-Fi, electricity, like those things will get to a point where they're like almost zero. But the problem with this marginal cost that there's one person make all of that and it's not shared anymore. So I think that's what we're trying to fix with per diem in a way. If we're gonna bring this, we're gonna share those better now. If we give the same tooling that those Amazon and Walmart have now with the 200 million emails to everyone, so they can sell more. So we're still automating a lot, but instead of just going to one person, we find the funnel starting to get to a small dips. So it's like, oh, this person and this business and this business. And, it's like, instead of just everything funneling to one platform, which is again,
So what
with
you're
Amazon
what
cloud
you're
services.
essentially doing is you're raising the tide, and when the tide rises, all the boats rise together.
Exactly. Yeah. They're still going to be a massive leader, but they're now going to have the alternative to say, okay, I can actually now, I have a small coffee shop in Berkeley. I can now ship coffee beans to everyone in the world. I can do delivery. I can do pickups. I'm a farmer. Now I don't need to go and sell it to a third party. I can actually be a farmer and sell it direct to consumer. And now I have this platform that people can just come pick it up. So instead of standing all day in the market, think about the guy who sells tomato from the Negev all the way to Shuk Carmel. Probably get cents, on each tomato. But instead, if you said, hey guys, buy your package here in this website, and every Friday, I'm going to be between 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. in this corner, come pick up your order. And you show up and you said, hey, this is me. You show me your driving license or your phone. Yes, that's you. Here's your order. Take it. And you actually now saved, like 50% of what you'll pay. And you got better produce because they got picked 2 days ago, then picked up 3 weeks ago. So that's what we bring. So cutting the middleman, again, we're going to be the middleman, but we are more transparent. We say, hey, we take 2% out of each transaction, and that's it. So
now, what do most people do in business that you do differently? And does that help you thrive or struggle?
I think it's, okay, so what we do different, I think being more transparent. Yeah. So we at Per Diem, me as a person, I think being more transparent. But I always tell people that like, oh, I should have said like that I have kids. I shouldn't have said that I'm pregnant. And then I ask the other question: if you wouldn't say that, if you wouldn't say that they hire you, would you want to go work there? Oh, and then it's like, oh, you're right. So a lot of the time when we do things that we feel like, oh, I shouldn't have said that or shouldn't have be so transparent about those things. No, that's good. Don't hire this person. It's good that they didn't take the job with you. It's good that you didn't take the job with them, because would you want to work for them if they're like this? And then it's always like, no. So perfect, great. So being, I think, transparent and more open about who you are and what you're looking for, it's better than just get someone in the door and then after realize, oh, that's not a good fit, or you getting into work there and basically your kids will be sick one day and you're going to have to tell them. And if they hate this and you know about them, just don't go there. So that's kind of I think it's I learned to kind of live with those things of like feeling, so not feeling, oh, I shouldn't, you know, I shouldn't have do that, or I should do this differently. I think a lot of businesses do ways of very non-transparent way and sell you a story that doesn't exist. If it's with stocks and equity, so I like to be very transparent. That's who we are. That's the company. That's how much we raise. That's how much runway we have. That's our revenue, and be more transparent. Again, with employees, people who are like, not like the media.
Well, again, that's a very brave, or I would say courageous approach in this day and age, because unfortunately there are too many companies who don't follow that path.
Yeah, I think you'll feel good also working with a company like that, where things are. And people are like, and I agree that it's not good for everyone. Some people, when they hear this, are like, oh my God, they only have 9 months of runway, and they're freaking out.
Hmm.
And maybe you don't need those people. Instead of hiding that, and that's what I'm saying about the good fit. Maybe those people who are freaking out, maybe they're just not a good fit, and it's okay. Not everyone are meant to be together, and I think that's when I learned that, like, it's all okay to do the way you like to do. As long as it's good, as long as it's like, oh, this is like, to the other point, this is who I am and you have to deal with this. No, I like to be transparent. And sometimes it looks scary. Maybe that's the way you actually talk with people. Said, I know it sounds crazy, but every company have a runway. Also, even Google and Apple have a runway. It's a very long runway, but it's a runway. If they don't make any more sales today, they have a runway of 20 months, maybe, not even, because they're spending a lot of money, right? So they do have a runway. In a way.
Hmm.
So
Wow, that's an interesting thought.
yeah,
Amazing. So thank you very, very, very much for your time, Doron, and
sure.
your fantastic and invaluable insights.
You're welcome anytime.
Amazing.